Watch my fingers.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. It's Tuesday, March 12th, 2024. We're glad you're here. If somebody made you come in here, we're still glad you're here anyway. This is the House Criminal Justice Full Committee, and we're now in session. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Representatives Carringer, Davis, Doggett, Farmer, Fritz, Glenn, Hardaway, Howell, Johnson, Lamberth, Moody, Russell, Towns, Vice Chairman Gillespie, Chairman Holsey.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Are there any personal orders from the committee? Seeing none, we need some words of wisdom from Mr. Tyler.
Good afternoon. Sorry about that, everyone. Handing out nameplates. Today's words of wisdom are brought to you by country legend, a man in black, Johnny Cash. My arms are too short to box with God. Y'all have a great afternoon.
All right, thank you for that. Chairman Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to clarify, that was a rerun.
Takes 2 years for their passe, though. All right, that we're going to start on our calendar. Item number 1, which brings up House Bill 2323 by Chair Lady Hazelwood. You are recognized with a motion and a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill is a repeat offenses sentencing enhancement. It's for minor misdemeanor act bill, and it's brought to you, the genesis of this bill, as often happens up here, came to my attention and Senator Watson's because of something tragic that happened to one of my constituents and his. This young man who was in his 30s, he has 3 small children under 4. At the time of this incident, he had a new baby that was just a few weeks old. He was downtown with some friends actually planning class reunion for his high school class, of which my daughter-in-law was a member. He was going to his car and passed housing, a low-cost or low-income housing area or building there in town, Patton Towers. There were a couple of men sitting on the stoop. He got into a verbal altercation as he walked by. He continued to walk on, and this is all on video. There's no audio, but there's video. And one of the men who had the verbal altercation with him got up from his seat on the steps and walked up with a gun and shot him in the back of the head and killed him. It turns out that this person had over 60 misdemeanors. He had been arrested and convicted for, but he had never been a convicted felon. Therefore, he legally had this gun. And when I sat down with our district attorney, who I want to really commend because she is the one who helped us put together this legislation, she showed me an appalling list, and I would encourage you to get with your district attorneys, see you may have something similar in your counties. But there was a very long list of people who had from 25 to over 100 convictions for misdemeanors. They'd never been a convicted felon. They're still walking the streets, and they're just part of a revolving door in our jail. So this bill is an attempt to address that. Currently, if you're convicted of domestic assault for a third or subsequent offense, you have to serve a minimum of 90 days in the county jail and pay a fine of up to $5,000. But under this bill, that becomes a Class E felony, depending upon the relationship to the victim. The bill would make a third or subsequent conviction for domestic assault a Class E felony, regardless of the relationship to the victim. So there are some crimes, and I'll just back up and say that the basic outlines of this bill, it's a step process, if you will. On your 6th misdemeanor, then that would become a felony. If you continue to offend, then the level of felonies would grow. If there is also a 10-year reset period in this bill, if you get your act together, all of us make mistakes, and if you get your act together and for 10 years you've not offended, then the 6th offense, if that was your 6th offense, it would not kick in. But again, there are some things that as a non-lawyer, I was amazed, and not in a good way, to find out the things that are just considered misdemeanors, and those would be these particularly heinous misdemeanors would become a Class C felony upon the third or subsequent conviction of the following offenses. And that's assault against a first responder or a nurse, child abuse, child neglect or endangerment, domestic assault, unlawful carrying and possession of a firearm, violation of an order of protection or restraining order, and violation of a no contact order. And again, this would not apply if it had been more than 10 years since you had offended. So also, I live in a border city, as many of you do. So we have people who go from Georgia to Tennessee to Alabama on a regular basis. And so convictions from another jurisdiction other than the state would be considered as a preceding qualifying misdemeanor if the elements of the offense are the same as the elements of a comparable offense here in Tennessee. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I don't want to overstay my welcome and my time limit, and would just stand ready for questions.
Okay, it's a good thing. We're getting ready to shut down, so that's fine. Any questions for the sponsor? Questions been called on the bill. We're voting on House Bill 2323. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. Ayes have it, ma'am. It moves to finance. They say that it's very difficult to get a bill passed over there, so you probably better start
Unless
working
you
now.
know people.
All right. That brings us up to item number 2, which is House Bill 2643 by Chairman Crawford. We have a motion and a second. Chairman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. I won't bore you with the story at this time. Last year, we passed legislation for the DAs to train with the TBI on prosecutions of crimes against children. We put that in place. It's been working for over a year, and all this bill does is name that act the Gabby Act. And the reason that we're naming it the Gabby Act, in my area in Bristol in October 2020, Gabby Kennedy and her mother, Christina Robinson, were shot and killed in Bristol by Christina's estranged husband, who just got out of jail, went and shot his daughter in the head, shot his wife, and then killed himself in the driveway. So that's the reason we'd like to name this act after him. Sorry.
Okay, any questions for the sponsor? Question been called on the bill. We're voting on House Bill 2643. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. Ayes have it. Sir, it moves to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Chairman and committee.
Moves us to item number 3, which is House Bill 1949. There's been some question about a new amendment on that. Folks have not had time to see it. And so there's been a request for some folks from higher education to be able to view that. So I'm going to roll this without it. If there's no objection, I'm going to roll this for 1 week. All right. Item number 3, House Bill 1949 is rolled for 1 week. Brings us up to number 4, which is House Bill 2348 by Chairman Reagan. We will roll that to the hill without objection. Moves us to item number 5, which is House Bill 1905. You got a motion and a second, Representative McCalman. You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, committee. Members, this bill is a real simple bill. It simply bumps up the penalty from Class A misdemeanor for willful, purposeful, and injury of a child from a Class A to a Class E felony for the ages of 9 to 18 years old. And with that, I stand ready for questions.
All right. Are there any questions for the sponsor? Questions been called on the bill. We're voting on House Bill 1905. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. Ayes have it. Bill sponsor, that moves to Finance and Ways and Means.
Thank you, Chairman and committee.
Thank you. Hicks. Item number 6, which is House Bill 1698. And you got a motion and a second, sir. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill comes from the Rutherford County School Board. They asked us to look into this as a way to help deter threats of mass violence against schools. And what this would do for any juvenile that's convicted of threatening a school or a school activity with mass violence is that it would suspend their driver's license for 1 year or it would make them wait 1 year if they're under 16 before they could get their license.
Questions, Representative Johnson?
Yes, so my concern is if this youth works and helps pay puts into the family budget, or if typically that would invite someone they would be expelled for that, making that threat, which would likely mean in a lot of counties, they would go to the alternative school. Transportation not always provided. So they would need transportation to actually attend school and not just be at home. So is there any way that we could say that they could use it for driving to school and work only, something like that, so that they do actually have a way to get to school if they are put in an alternative placement?
You're right. Thank you for that question. In this bill, it does not. It just suspends their driver's license for the 1 year. That was a concern I raised with the person that brought this to me, and they wanted to make it just a 1 year suspension.
Okay, well, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but if they need to drive to get to the school or the alternative school that they'll be sent to, I can't support it if it's going to potentially cut out their transportation to school.
All right. Anyone else have any other questions for the sponsor? Yes, Chairman Lowell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mine's just a technical question. This morning, we passed a bill to define mass violence. Do we have to pass that one first to do this one, or is it already defined in statute, or how does it work?
Is that question being
I
addressed
guess we
to
should ask legal.
legal?
Yes, yeah.
All right. We're going to go out of session and hear from legal.
Michelle Fogarty, Legal Services. This bill adds a new subsection to the same statute that involved in a bill that went through the House Criminal Sub this morning. So if they both pass, then they can work together.
And one does not have to pass before the other one.
Correct.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else have any questions for legal while we're out of session? All right. We're going to go back into session. And sponsor. Question has been called. All those in favor of voting HB 1698 onto Finance, Ways and Means, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right. If you voted no, please let the clerk know. You're on your way to Finance.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Mr. Chairman and committee.
All right. Next up, we have House Bill 1978. Representative Capley, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, House Bill 1978, essentially what it does is it makes burglary a Class D felony. And Mr. Chairman, before I get into the nuances of this, I have some people that want to testify, so I stand at the will of the committee.
All right. We're going to go out of session and hear from Jane Covington and
Thank you, Chairman.
Just-
I have, oh,
thank you all so much. And just for the record, if y'all could both state your names as you're opening up, and you have 3 minutes each.
thank you. Mitch is actually here just to answer questions. Again, I'm Jane Covington here on behalf of the Tennessee Railroad Association. I am personally with CSX, which is one of the Class 1 railroads here in Tennessee. And this bill deals with cargo theft, just to be clear, not, any other kind of theft. So we're talking large quantities of cargo. And I'm certain this committee is aware that cargo theft is actually on the rise in the U.S. A new statistic we just saw today is that it's actually up 82% year over year from 2023 to 2024. And 8% just between January and February of this year. And unfortunately, we're not exempt from it here in Tennessee. And it doesn't just impact railroads, it impacts every mode that moves cargo. So that's air freight, that is truckers, and even waterborne freight. The rail industry is asking that you please pass HB 1978 to increase the penalties for cargo theft from those associated with a Class E felony to those associated with a Class D felony. And that's to help send a message to the criminals that Tennessee cities are not interested in becoming LA. Tennessee is strategically located for the freight rail industry because Memphis is one of 5, but one of the actual 3 major gateways between Eastern and Western railroads. So right there along the Mississippi River where we hand cargo off for one another. And because of that, there are also major intermodal yards there which connect rail transportation to trucking. So Memphis truly is an intermodal freight hub, which provides an economic advantage to the entire state for industrial development. Currently, cargo theft in Memphis has surpassed the same in Chicago. As a matter of fact, for CSX, we operate in 26 states, and 83% of our freight damage claims that are associated with cargo theft are from Memphis. But this is absolutely not a Memphis problem. It's a statewide problem. It is a safety problem, and it's an economic development problem. Cargo theft is now being committed by sophisticated, organized crime groups, and these property crimes are leading to violent crimes. Many of the perpetrators are from out of state, and Memphis is, because of its significance as a freight hub, it's a place that these out of state gangs have and cargo theft rings have targeted and decided to set up residence, and they are recruiting Tennesseans. Railroad law enforcement is very appreciative of the partnership. We were just in Memphis last week meeting with the Memphis Chamber.
I'm
and
sorry, if you just want to wrap it up real
Yep.
quick.
Will do. Anyway, we have a great partnership with the city of Memphis. They've asked for our help on this. We're more than willing to provide that. I have Mitch Thompson here and with Railroad Police, and we're able to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you
Thanks for
so
your time.
much,
Sure.
Ms. Covington. Leader Lambert.
Jen, it's good to see you again. Well, I can't see you currently, but that's okay. But it's good to see y'all again. That's right. It's okay. I just want to say thank y'all for your investment in Tennessee. You guys are such a critical part of our success as a state from a commerce standpoint, and just really, really appreciate everything that you do. And sir, thank you for helping us keep us safe out there in the rails. So just want to say publicly, thank y'all very much.
Anyone else? Chairman Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and it's good to see you again, Ms. Covington. Nice to see you as well. As Chairman of Transportation, I'm well aware of what's going on in this area, and it's critical to the economy as well as to the locals that it impacts. And we all feel it when we go to the store because we end up paying the freight, no pun intended. And I know it's a heavy burden on the railroads financially, but tell the committee what the railroads are doing to try to secure your facilities.
Yes, sir. So in the last 24 months, we have invested.
I'm sorry, could you just state your name for the record, please, for those listening?
Mitchell Thompson. In the last 24 months, we've spent $7 million specifically in Memphis, Tennessee with cut-proof fencing, camera systems, lighting, and we're currently in place an intrusion detection system. One of the keynotes I want to highlight is being that it's organized across the United States from LA to Memphis, Atlanta, Birmingham. They are following and actually doing counter surveillance against the rail industry, targeting specific containers. So if it does not get specifically targeted in Memphis, it will get targeted if it goes west, say Texas, or once it gets to California. Furthermore, one last thing, the rail industry, all the railroad police agencies and the 5 federal cargo theft task force are collectively working to identify these organic groups that are committing these acts, which are supporting violent crimes across America.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It sounds like this is organized crime across multiple states. So a question I have has to do with interstate commerce. Is not this something that should concern the federal government? Are the U.S. district attorneys involved? Any discussion on that level?
So we met last week in Memphis again with, it was a great meeting, including the FBI and the U.S. District Attorney. They are very much involved. We learned last week that if the state decides to prosecute, the feds no longer have jurisdiction, and the U.S. Attorney committed that he said that he has a good relationship with the DA in Memphis, and that they would get together and, going forward, try to work on, coordinating prosecution. But
Okay.
you're exactly right. It does. There are a couple different federal statutes that this could fall under.
Yes. One more final question, Mr. Chairman, if I may. Give us some examples of what the organized criminals are targeting. What type of things are they looking for when they break into the rail cars?
I'll let Mitch add to this, but they definitely know. There's an example of an intermodal business in Memphis who had a truck stolen from them, and then the criminal in their truck broke into a rail yard and stole specific containers. They know exactly what they're looking for. And so we've seen things from Nike shoes are a hot commodity, tools, Amazon shipments, which I probably wasn't supposed to say the name of that, but shipments of packages. What are some other examples, Mitch?
So
Tires. We've seen 2 different brands of tires get hit lately.
So nothing food related or anything like that. It's anything that can be stolen and sold in a relatively quick manner
Mhm.
to return to invest in weapons, drugs, and human trafficking.
Okay.
So it's directly correlated to those 3 particular topics.
Very good. Well, thank you for what you're doing and for coming and enlightening the committee on this serious problem. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions for these folks while we're out of session? Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for coming today. So you piqued my interest with something there. The intermodal containers are loaded overseas and brought, I'm assuming, and brought into shipyards here and then put onto rail. Is that correct?
I would say 2 different types of intermodal. You do have the international that's shipped into, say, Savannah, Georgia, and then transported by rail to a intermodal facility such as Memphis, and then trucked to a store or a plant. But we also have that commodities also that are like the Blue Oval would be an example in Stanford, Tennessee, where it's domestic, and then moved to the intermodal facility in Memphis and then trucked to that location.
And one follow-up, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
if I
sir.
could. Is there a preponderance of the crime that's taking place with the foreign shipments or the ones from like the Blue Oval?
Everything, both domestic, international, and anything is being stolen right now across the United States.
Any other questions for these folks? All right. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
We're back in session. Any more questions for the sponsor? Vice Chair Gillespie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the sponsor, thank you so much. This is one of those bills that I wish I could be carrying, but I was unable to carry it due to my bill limit. But I just wanted to say thank you, and I support it 100%. And also, Mr. Chairman, do you mind if I go out of order?
Help yourself.
Okay. I just wanted to announce I had some family that just walked into the room. My cousin Whitney Bricken and her 2 children, Grace and Whitney, and Ben, and their grandfather, our colleague, Representative Bricken. So if we could just welcome them to the room, please.
Well, Grace and Whitney and Ben, have a seat and enjoy. All right, Representative Johnson.
I certainly understand what you're doing, and I appreciate the problem we have here. I think that's critical, but I still am at that place because it can also be, your neighbor walking into your garage and walking out with a Coke out of your fridge, that is covered in the same thing. And so that's a difficult one for me. But, you know, I appreciate all the information about what can happen, but I just want to make sure that we're going after the big stuff.
Okay. I believe that's current law and your bill doesn't change this, right?
Mr. Chairman, it would change burglary from a Class E felony to a Class D
Yeah,
felony.
but not under the circumstance you're talking about though.
All burglary.
All burglary.
No.
Yes, good. We go to a session from legal. Go ahead.
Michelle Fogarty, Legal Services. Under current law, burglary under subdivisions A1, A2, or A3 is a Class D felony. And that would be entering a building other than a habitation not open to the public with the intent to commit a felony, theft, or assault, remaining concealed with the intent to commit a felony, theft, or assault in a building, or entering a building and committing or attempting to commit a felony, theft, or assault. Under current law, those are all Class D felonies. And also under current law, entering any freight or passenger car, automobile, truck, trailer, boat, airplane, or other motor vehicle with the intent to commit a theft, felony, or assault is currently a Class E felony. This bill makes all 4 of those a Class D felony. So this situation you were referencing is already a Class D felony.
Any questions for legal? Oh, I'm sorry. We're back out. You want me to hit it again?
No, sir. I like the way you
Representative
ungavel that gavel. For legal, with the burglary of the planes, trains, automobiles, would it matter whether they're standing still or moving?
Michelle Fogarty, Legal Services. The language of the statute does not distinguish that. It just says entering any freight or passenger car with the intent to commit a felony, theft, or assault.
Okay, we're having problems in the world with the theft of beer and drinks from trucks that are stopped at intersections. Would that be burglary under this?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And any other questions for legal? All right, we're back in session. Any other questions for the sponsor? Leader Lambert.
Move previous question.
Previous question been called. We're voting on House Bill 1978. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Ayes have it. Moves to finance, sir. That moves us to number 8. No, we're going to back up, aren't we, as Chairman Reagan here? Which number was he? We're going to back up to item number 4, which is House Bill 2348 by Chairman Reagan. You got a motion, a second, sir? Sir, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill basically says that in the 21st century, terrorist organizations are enabled by technology to spread their message even into our own country. After the October 7th attacks, Hamas supporters in our own country called for violence and genocide and solicited material support. Taxpayer-funded universities became hotbeds for anti-Israel, anti-American rallies and publications, and taxpayers are supporting those institutions. This bill prohibits taxpayer-funded entities from furnishing meeting spaces or electronic or print platforms to designated terrorist entities. And to clarify, it does not violate the First Amendment. Excuse me, sir. I just realized I didn't put the amendment on.
Yep. Well, I should have reminded you, but let's do it right now. Motion, second. We're looking at Amendment 014237.
That
Is
is
that what you
correct, sir.
have? All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. Ayes have it. The amendment's on. You can continue.
Thank you. With the amendment, this does not violate the First Amendment because a group or organization found by a court of competent jurisdiction to have engaged in the act of terrorism, whether they are foreign or domestic, would be covered under this. And the designated entities, as legal as once explained before, are designated by our State Department on their list. we have a responsibility to ensure that the money that this state takes from its taxpayers are not used to harm innocents. With that, I stand ready to answer questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions for the sponsor? Representative Glenn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you have a list of where do we find, should I say, the list of designated terrorist groups that have been identified?
Go ahead.
Those are on the State Department list, sir. They're available online if you choose. They're also available in print. You can ask for them.
Go ahead.
So only those organizations would be covered under this bill?
No, sir. Any organization found by a court of competent jurisdiction to have engaged in an act of terrorism would be covered in this bill.
Go ahead.
So that would mean, so then those names wouldn't be on the state. You say any organization. So any organization, they may not actually be under.
On the amendment, sir, because of confusion that was generated earlier, we broke it down into 3 parts. Part A is a designated entity, which was explained by legal to include those that we're talking about on the State Department. There were questions about domestic groups. Part B says a group or organization found by a court of competent jurisdiction to have engaged in an act of terrorism. That covers them. And then Part C says a group or organization that receives financial or other support from a designated entity, oversees support coming in. Does that answer your question, sir?
Not really, but thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Johnson.
Okay, in section 1, subdivision A2B, could you elaborate on how it would be enforced?
It is up to the institutions concerned, and I assume acting on the basis of guidance that is put out in this bill and or complaints to do so.
Okay, but what would that look like? If you could give me an example of what that would look like.
A hypothetical example is hard to come up with, but for just as a hypothetical proposition here, let's say that a university is renting out space for a terrorist organization to recruit or otherwise gather money or some other benefit. This bill is intended to stop that.
And how is it going to stop that? How would that be enforced? Who carries that out?
That is up to the university to enforce the law in that case.
Okay. All right. So, and last week we discussed the FBI does actually have a list of domestic terrorists. That does exist. It's on FBI.gov. Also, for section 1, A2C, could you clarify what you mean by other support? Because that seems broad and it's concerning to some of my constituents. What does other support mean?
Obviously, it means that which is enabling that organization to continue their mission or effort. Other support is self-evident as far as I can tell.
Well, for legally, it's a little bit vague, and that's what it was. Attorneys asking the question because to them it seems vague, and for clarification, again, I guess we'd have to come up with hypotheticals. Do you have any hypotheticals of what that might be? Other support?
Again, purely hypothetical would be perhaps allowing some group to come in and stand guard to protect one of these illegal organizations from doing what they're doing, the standing guard to prevent the enforcement action against them.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the sponsor? Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Chairman. She mentioned, Representative Johnson mentioned the FBI. Would these extremists and hate groups be covered under your bill if they're on that FBI list of extremists and hate groups?
Straightforwardly, the answer to your question is only those groups that have been found by a court of competent jurisdiction to be so. If those entities are on a list, the answer is yes. If they're on the list but have not been found by a court of competent jurisdiction, then no, this would not apply.
Okay, I'm not quite sure, sponsor, you and I usually talk straight to each other. What is meant by court's findings on the definition of this. However, for the FBI group, they include such things as Black September, Aryan Nation, Original Knights of the KKK, American Nazi Party, and they've got some more, the Covenant, the Sword, the Arm of the Lord. They've got quite a few. So I'm asking with those groups, that was just a brief sample, but those groups would be covered under your bill also.
Only if a court has ruled them to be a terrorist organization.
Okay, once again, I'm having a difficult time trying to remember any group being found by a court to be a terrorist organization. I didn't think that was the court's
Mr.
purpose.
Chair, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
the FBI is a arm of the executive branch. They are not empowered to take away rights of U.S. citizens, and presumably some of those groups you named are made up of U.S. citizens. Courts are empowered to do that. If the FBI has put an organization on that list a court has not found, the implication is an executive branch agency has made that decision without adjudication. Therefore, that could potentially wind up being a constitutional violation. That's the reason I specified a court of jurisdiction, competent jurisdiction.
Okay, still not comfortable, but so I'm going to ask you specifically about some of the groups that are cited, like Aryan Nation, the Original Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. We'll just go with those two. Would those two be covered under your bill?
Again, I have to specify, I have not looked them up to see if there's a court finding against them. If they have been adjudicated and found by a court to be a terrorist organization, the answer to your question is yes, they're included in this bill. If they have not been adjudicated by a court of competent jurisdiction to be a terrorist organization, the answer is no.
Okay. I'm probably going to have to vote no. Correction. I'm definitely going to vote no. Okay. But thank you for engaging, sir.
Peter Lambert.
Move previous question.
Question's been called. We're voting on House Bill 2348. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. If you want to be a no, record it with the clerk, please. And thank you, Chairman, for taking it on.
You're welcome, sir.
Goes to calendar and rules, sir.
Thank you.
That moves us back up to item number 8, which is House Bill 0441. And you have an amendment, sir. You have a motion and a second, so you're cleared for runway 23. There is an amendment. I'm showing 13858. Is that what you have?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Is there a motion and a second? We're voting on amendment 013858. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The amendment's on the bill. Please proceed, sir.
Thank you, sir. The amendment actually makes the bill. It's a very simple bill. It helps the DAs to receive IDs of abused people that have been abused, get reported to them early in the investigation in the prosecutorial process before the indictment or before the procedures take place. It just helped the DAs out in getting that work done early and more proficiently. Be glad to make any other statements, answer any questions that you may have on this legislation.
Okay, questions for the sponsor? Representative Johnson.
Just to help me with my memory, was this the bill that we talked a little bit about whether or not the person who made the call or made the report would be found out. And you said only by the district attorney. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct. We talked about it in sub, yes.
Okay.
Because we talked about this bringing it in line as close as we could with the DAs without it being an issue. But
Right.
this is, yes, ma'am.
Without it getting to the other
Yes.
folks that might. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for the sponsor? My fear on that one was the DA will turn around and subpoena that person to court, and they'll testify, and that will blow their anonymity, and then it won't be long that the word will get out, and nobody will be telling anything. But anyway, all right, we are voting on House Bill 0441. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. No. Ayes have it. Thank you, sir. Goes to calendar and rules, sir. That moves us to item number 9. Oh, it is off notice. I'm sorry.
You need to say that for the record. Item number 9. 1845.
House Bill 1845 is off notice. Moves us to item number 10 on the calendar. It's House Bill 1848 by the distinguished
Thank you.
Representative Parkinson. You
Thank
got
you.
a motion to second. You recognize, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it, and thank you, committee. What this bill does, it requires adult-oriented businesses to post the human trafficking hotline information at their, am I on the right bill, 1848? Yes.
Yes.
To post the human trafficking hotline information at their entrances and in their bathrooms.
All right. Chairman Doggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and you always look good when you come to committee, especially like that tie. It goes well with your outfit.
Thank you, sir. I feel it's a setup somehow, but thank you.
Eerily familiar to the one I've donated to Ties Returns.
Oh, as stated in previous conversations, the price of doing business in the state of Tennessee. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Leader Lambert.
Move previous question.
Question been called. We're voting on House Bill 1848. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. Ayes have it. Goes to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and
that moves
thank
us
you,
to the next item where the same sponsors, House Bill 1954. Motion. You have a motion in a second.
Thank you.
You're recognized, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
There
Mr.
is an amendment I'm showing.
Yes, sir. There is an amendment. You have 013908. Is that same amendment?
That's the number I've got, 013908. We got a motion and a second. We're voting on amendment 013908. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Amendments on the bill. Proceed, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, committee. This is the bill that I was running during special session that would go after the adults who coerce or induce minors into stealing guns and using those guns in a crime. And it also changes from Class A misdemeanor to a Class D felony, those adults that illegally, keyword being illegally, give minors guns or sell guns to minors. That's what the bill does. Thank you, and I renew my motion.
Okay. Questions for the sponsor? Yes, Representative Hardaway.
Thank you. Would you give that description again on how the amended bill is different from the original bill? Is the criminal responsibility still there for the adult?
No, it's not. That's been removed.
And I'm curious because it didn't take the incarceration away, the cost. Shouldn't that have come off also?
That's a question for fiscal.
All right, thank you.
Leader Lambert.
Move previous question.
Previous question been called. We're voting on House Bill 1954. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it, sir. It moves on to finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee. Thank you, Democrats. Appreciate you. Thank you, Republicans. Appreciate you.
Can't leave well enough
Brings us to
alone.
item number 12. House Bill 1718 by Vice Chair Gillespie. You got a motion to second, please proceed.
Thank you so much, Chair and committee. And the amendment is already added, correct? It is not? Okay, we need to,
It's amendment 014544.
that is correct.
Okay. Got a motion and a second. We're voting on amendment 014544. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Please proceed.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman and committee. What this bill does is pretty simple. If your county has an Office of Pretrial Services that monitors bond conditions set, it would require them to monitor and enforce for all Class A, B, C, or D felonies, that those bond conditions are met, and if they are broken, then a warrant would be issued for your arrest. And with that, I welcome any questions.
Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have the same question as last time because I've talked again with lawyers, especially in rural counties, and they will have to be held in jail possibly up to a month for a judge to cycle through their county. And their concern is that that they will be, when they do come through, all they'll have time to do will be bail hearings, and that it will slow down their docket because they come through for a limited time. And that is the concern that they have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I stated, this is only applying to counties with that Office of Pretrial Services that is already doing this existing work. We're just making it applied to Class A, B, C, or D felonies.
Well, as written, they seem to feel like this is a product, so maybe we could ask legal that question.
Without objection, we'll go out of session to hear from legal.
Michelle Fogarty, Legal Services. The amendment adds to the statute regarding conditions on release, and it says, if a magistrate imposes conditions on release of a defendant charged with an A, B, C, or D felony and pretrial services are available, then the court shall also require the monitoring. So it's already, it's adding to what has to be done once the magistrate orders conditions on release. It doesn't affect when, there's nothing in the language about when they get the hearing or when their bail is determined.
So then they could be sitting in lockup until the judge comes through their county. Is that correct?
But this bill doesn't change any of that. It just adds to what the magistrate must do when they do order conditions on release. It doesn't change when they see the magistrate or when they are released
I
with
see
conditions.
what you're saying. I understand
Yeah.
what you're saying, but they were very, they thought they were certain about what it would look like. And so sadly, they're not here right now. But thank you for the clarification.
Any other question for legal while we're out? Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Chairman. To be clear on the evaluations, the monitoring, the pretrial monitoring, to be in compliance, would it matter whether you're already doing it or not? Or would you have to start the pretrial monitoring if you're not doing it under the language of the amended bill?
Michelle Fogarty, Legal Services. It only applies to counties who already have pretrial monitoring services in place. So if your county does not already have pretrial monitoring services in place, then this bill language would not apply.
Okay, I'll wait till we get back in session, Mr. Chairman, then I'm going to ask about that $34 million. Thank you, sir.
Or any other question for legal? All right, we're back in service. Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Chairman. To the sponsor, is that that 34.2 million, is that eliminated with the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, that is eliminated. The most recent fiscal note does not have that in there.
All right, so the pretrial monitoring would be within the existing resources of the current, of the jurisdictions which currently have that. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, if your county already has this office, it would just add to their duties. Which, yeah.
Okay.
And I would remind you that the whole purpose of the judge's ruling to allow for these conditions is that they're being monitored.
All right, help me to understand what's different from what the judges would do now compared to what they would do under your bill. Wouldn't they, if someone broke bond, failed to meet those conditions, wouldn't they already order them to be picked up, locked up? Does this leave any discretion? How does this change the current practice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So it is my understanding in certain places, these monitoring services are only taking place during business hours, Monday through Friday. That's what would change.
Oh, that's different. Thank you.
Any other questions for the sponsor? All right, we are voting on House Bill 1718. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Ayes have it. Going to Finance. That moves us to item number 13, which is House Bill 2590. You have a motion and a second for Chairman Russell. And I got an amendment, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have an amendment. It's 014523.
014523. Is there a motion and a second on the amendment? All right, we're voting on 014523. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Amendments on the bill. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Committee. House Bill 2590 defines bullying and cyberbullying in the harassment statute. House Bill 2590 will also require a law enforcement officer to make a report if the victim is a minor and let the parents know how to get a copy of the report. With that, I renew my motion.
Questions for the sponsor? Representative Johnson.
And again, I do appreciate the intent of the bill and I agree with you in so much of it. But because my 27 years experience with troubled kids are often troubled kids because of the homes they grow up in. And my concern of those kids that could be at great risk if parents find out, perhaps if they have, had sex with someone at school that they were getting bullied for, or in the LGBTQ community, something like that. So even though I understand what you're trying to do and appreciate it, it's that concern for me of seeing so many kids in bad situations that I'm concerned about. That makes this a tough one, but I do appreciate what you're trying to do.
Good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And my intent is just to define bullying, because that seems to be a common denominator in these acts of violence and suicides. And what happens at home, I hope this will improve that. I hope that the parents will stand behind their kids and get them any kind of counseling or whatever they need to help them. So with that, I renew my motion.
Any questions for the sponsor? All right, seeing none, we're voting on House Bill 2590. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Ayes have it. Moves to counter and rule, sir. Takes us to item, Leader Lambert.
I'm just going to sub in on this one, Mr. Chairman. I'm a co-sponsor of it. I've talked to Representative Carringer, and she is in another committee.
Okay, that moves us to House Bill 15. Well, I guess, wait a minute. You're going to take it, right?
Well, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, if I have signed on to this bill, and if I could run it for Representative Carringer, she would deeply appreciate it.
You can indeed. Is there a motion and a second? All right, you got it. Proceed, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And there's an amendment that I have filed on this that makes the bill. It's coded 014380. I'd move that amendment at this time.
All right, we're voting on 0131. Nope. 014380. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The amendment's not on. Proceed, leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. This is called Ledford's Law, and this requires both treatment and with the amendment, those that have been convicted of vehicular homicide, vehicular assault, to not possess or consume alcohol or illegal drugs while they are on that probationary or parole sentence. I've spent almost 20 years handling these cases in the court system, and that is something that folks that are on probation or parole do not need to be doing if they have seriously injured or killed someone else. And so that's just a temptation that is too far for them. But that is just during probation or parole, not for any time beyond that. I stand ready for questions, Mr. Chairman.
Any question been called on the bill? We're voting on House Bill 2363. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Ayes have it. Moves to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Moves us to item 15, which is House Bill 2395. You have a motion and a second. Representative Davis?
Chairman, can I present from my seat?
Of course.
Thank you,
And-
sir.
And I have an amendment too.
Yes, sir. I have 013605 that makes the bill.
Is there a motion and a second on this amendment? You have a motion and a second. We're voting on amendment 013605. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. It's on the bill. Proceed, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, committee. And essentially what House Bill 2395 does is it adds to the false reporting. We're adding active shooter to that list of bombing or hostage situation. Also, if a response is done by a special weapons tactical team, such as swatting, we're including that as well. And then one thing that we are changing under section C2 is the private residence or residential building, because we are having incidences of where just recently we had Congressman Burchett had a swatting incident to his home. And so these are very serious incidences of false reporting. And we need to make sure that people understand that these are serious felonies and we need to keep our citizens safe.
All right, any questions for the sponsor? Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Chair. And she might not know, but if not, we can get with it later. Are the costs for these swatting incidents, are we able to go back and recoup those costs?
Go ahead.
Thank you for that question. That's one thing that I have spoken to various law enforcement officials and then also with like TBI. One of the things that may be possible is when that DA is prosecuting that case, that can be added on as either some sort of restitution if they have the ability to create some sort of financial fine as to what the expense was of how many people were involved in that situation.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the bill. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Leader Lambert.
Any other questions for the sponsor? All right. Questions been called on the bill. We're voting on House Bill 2395. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Moves on to calendar and rules. Brings us to item number 16, which is House Bill 0688, which is a motion to be enrolled 1 week without objection. 0688 is rolled 1 week. We are adjourned.